So with that, I want to introduce Judy DeFreitas. Judy is with PG&E. As I've mentioned, we are super grateful to PG&E for sponsoring this event, but I especially love Judy because she always comes and engages. And as I mentioned, PG&E also sponsors our Food Access Conference, and Judy always comes and goes to all of the workshops. So she's deeply ingrained in this event and in our work, and as well as has been a great supporter of all of our food banks. So thank you for showing up here today and always showing up with us and for us. So I'm going to turn it over to Judy real quick to introduce herself. And also the first question that I have for you is for you, Judy. So I'll let you introduce yourself. And if you could answer this question afterwards, that'd be great. And it is, what is the role of companies or philanthropy, whichever lens you prefer, in addressing hunger and the underlying causes of hunger? But I know you guys do a lot of work in the hunger space, so I would just love to hear your insights. I'll punt it to you,
Thank
Judy.
you. And thanks for bringing this possibility to us, and right back at everyone at the California Association of Food Banks, in that it's, for me, been a really great partnership, but also we can spend time talking about ideas and how we can bring things to people such as this. And we here at PG&E are certainly proud to be able to do that. I'm Judy DeFreitas. I'm a principal over at the PG&E Corporation Foundation, which provides funding. We've been providing funding for food banks consistently, all of the food banks in our service area, for about 5 years now. We'll be funding again with $1.1 million to food banks this year. So you'll all, those of you who are within the PG&E service area, will be hearing from me. And that will go to food banks, some of our Meals on Wheels organizations, as well as tribal food banks across our service area. I want to say that listening today has brought back, just certain memories for me as a first-generation American. My parents immigrated here from a small country in South America called Suriname, which, if anyone's not familiar with it, it's like the only country in South America that speaks Dutch. So let me just say how isolating that might be when my parents came to America. My mom had a third-grade education because she had to make money for her family, couldn't continue school. My dad didn't graduate high school in Suriname, and when he came over, he got his high school diploma. It took my family, and as many of you who are first generation folks might know, that you're the translator for your family to do things. You're the one that goes to the food counter when something's not right. You're the one who takes the phone when you're calling when the bills aren't being paid, and translating the information and things like that, which can be a little bit of a stressor. But I will say, for me, it did give me a sense of knowing how to handle myself, right, out in the public, right? So if I have to think about it in one way, it was a great thing. I know, growing up, I grew up in Brooklyn, and I went back to Brooklyn. I go back every year because my family still lives there, and we all talked about the government cheese, the yellow blocks of cheese that we used to get, and bologna, and how no one eats bologna now because it's just not great for you. So I even that in my family, there's some great memories, although I will say we were a lower income family, and the fact that we didn't speak a language that was dominant in Brooklyn, which is mostly Spanish, didn't help us to fit in a lot with people. People would always say, "Are you from Africa?" Because when they hear my parents, who spoke a dialect from Suriname, it's called Taki Taki, people would think, "Oh my goodness, where are you people from?" But so anyway, we had to just deal with that kind of thing. But this conversation has really, for me, made me, one, think back to my past and what it was like growing up, and giving me an opportunity to understand my parents' struggles with 3 children and trying to make that work in a different way. I mean, I always knew, right? You always know as a kid, but you don't really know because you're not the one who's running things. So I just want to thank y'all for this conversation, and I'm looking forward to the next three conversations that we're going to have, because this is really, I think these are ideas that you need to noodle around and figure out how you're going to use your power, whatever that is. And everyone has some bit of power, whether they realize it or not. It's just a question of, do you have the gumption to really use it, right? And do you feel like you can use it? I guess maybe is a little bit more of it. Um, will help us all to see how we can fit in and we can help out. So just thank you to all of you. And this has been a great conversation for me to listen to today.
Thank you, Judy. I really appreciate that. Um, so with that, I'm going to ask one more question, and then I want to open it up to see if the speakers have any questions. And this is similar to what was in the chat and also kind of texted to me. But and maybe Reggie, you could kick us off on this one because I know the ACCFB does such amazing work kind of on both sides. But the question is, do you have advice for organizations that are trying to find a balance between meeting immediate needs versus addressing the underlying causes of hunger? And are there any easy actions for direct service organizations to take to kind of move towards that space?
I definitely have advice in that regards. I think so. One way I kind of look at it is that I'll just give y'all an example of what we kind of do that's not direct food distribution. So a big part of our work is around policy and advocacy work. We also have community organizers on our team that are out in community thinking about how do we work in collaboration with folks who are essentially power building around a certain issue or topic that may not even be directly food related, but it does have some intersection into our work, right? And so a lot of ways that I think about is that the that type of work is the space in which we can have long-term gains that can go on for decades. And the reality is that nobody comes to talk with Reggie, elected official, or so forth, if the work that we're doing in community, the distribution work, is not solid, right? And so, in a lot of ways, I think about the great work that we do on the distribution to meet the needs for people today is kind of gives us the foundation and also the platform for us to have these other types of conversations that allow us the opportunity to make strides in ending the need over time, right? And so I think for all of us, there is a desire and a need to find what that balance can look like. I would say lean on your board and thinking about what that could be for your respective organization. But I think that specific philosophy in allowing some space for that work that's going to have the long-term impacts is necessary, because otherwise, from my perspective, how do you get to the finish line otherwise, right? But one specific thing that I think all of us can do, uh, as some advice from myself, is think about the power of partnerships.
Mm.
If you're a food bank, one of the great things is that you're already situated amongst a number of partnerships, right? I have 400 partners that we work with within our community. Several of them, food is just a component of what they do. It's not the main aspect of what they do. They may be social justice organization, which has a food component. They could be housing institutions that could have a food component. And so one way is trying to leverage the existing partnerships you have to build deeper relationships, to identify opportunities for you to support the existing work that's going in ways that's going to have long-term impacts. One of the great things about being in collaboration with other partners is that you don't always have to lead. A lot of times you can just be in support of great work that is already happening and helping to push that work going forward, leveraging the resources that you have as an organization. And so a lot of times when I think about what's an easy way, none of it is easy. An easier way to get into the game when you don't necessarily know how is to support the great work that other people are doing, particularly your community members.
Yep, I think that's exactly right. Thank you, Reggie. Um, does Eric, Gloria, Terry, anybody else want to jump in there? Okay, you covered it, Reggie. I think I saw a lot of nodding heads. So I did want to just take a minute and ask if any of you had a question for one another or anything else that you wanted to add that you hadn't said previously. Go ahead, Eric.
I actually did have a question. Terry referenced and kind of teased, and I'd love to hear, Terry, you just say a little bit more about, because you finished by saying there's a lot of things people could do, but we're short on time. So I'd love to have you kind of share a few of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this kind of picks up on what Reggie was saying too about working in partnership. And I think that, really focusing on the expertise that organizations have of either their own members, their own communities, but then being able to kind of trust others. So like, for example, CAFB does a really great job teeing up opportunities for members to engage, like it may be in a federal fight related to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It may be in, the budget fights related to cuts to SNAP, cuts to Medicaid, et cetera. Or it may be state opportunities like pieces of legislation that, there's a ledge agenda and things like that. And so I would say like trusting the organizations that you're a part of and the partnerships, and let them kind of like say like, yep, we've actually done the analysis, we've done the, we've taken a look at and we think these things are worth supporting, and kind of like, throw in with the folks. And that, of course, is also, as you're saying, Reggie, easier because you don't have to actually do the whole thing yourself, but you can be an important part of it. And then I also think, being able to talking to your legislators, talking every opportunity they come, food banks used to be a bipartisan thing. I think to some degree it still is somewhat. And so like when the people who are making decisions are in your midst, make sure you have an ask. Make sure you have an ask of them. Do not let them get away without asking them something. And whatever the ask is, just make sure it's an ask and that you're actually expecting them to show up for you in the same way that you're showing up for your community.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, I'm hearing partnerships loud and clear as a really important relationship, and to build those partnerships, whether it's with a legislator or community members or other organizations working in the space. So hearing that loud and clear. I'm going to ask one more question. It's a big one. So one more question, which is, with things rapidly changing federally, the new continuing resolution, how are you meeting this moment? Your organization, meeting this moment. Gloria, Eric, anybody want to chime in?
Yeah, I would say that I think we're trying to meet this moment with different fronts. But what comes to mind right now is the education. We're doing a lot of political education with our grassroots members. Obviously we all saw the writing on the wall. We knew this was coming. So last year we started a very concentrated effort of having space to educate, maybe not educate, but share information with our community members. So we really talked about some of the projects that were coming up in 2025. And really looking through what was being planned for us, right? What decisions were going to be made, where we were maybe thinking of some dismantling of some services and funding, so that we were doing and having that conversation with the folks on the ground way in advance. And now we're continuing to have those conversations, not only in understanding the policies, the orders that are coming down, how it impacts folks, so that people have that information and feel empowered. But we're also doing a lot of like rapid response and also community care, in terms of how do we take care of one another? How do we listen to one another's needs and bring that to the forefront? Whether it's distributing information on how to stay safe. How do you distribute information where people might be able to find resources that they're going to need more than ever? And then the other thing that I'll mention, which I think maybe it made me think of when Reggie was answering your first question, is like, what can we do, right? The question about like resources shrinking, there's not enough money, and the need is greater than ever. I think for those who have an engaged audience, I would say really seizing that opportunity. Now, as someone who, used to do service provision, social services, and think of like all of the opportunities we had to really educate folks. I know that there's a very fine line that we have to walk on in terms of our C3 status and what can we do in that space. But I think we could educate around how decisions are being made, how our government works, where people can be civically engaged. And then the other thing is advocate, in terms of, again, within your own C3 status, advocate. Not only for policy that will increase services and opportunities for our community members.